Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Paula Rosen. I'm the publisher of Education Update, and it is a 20-year-old newspaper that brings education news to the nation. We are so proud to be here in the Child Mind Institute with two leaders in a new program. One is Dr. Mandi Silverman, and Mandi is in green, and the other is Michelle Kaplan, who is in white. So just so you keep your colors organized, and we are so proud to be here with you and the wonderful work that you do, and of course Dr. Harold Koplowitz, who's been around in this field for many, many years doing wonderful things. So we're going to ask some questions about the new part of the Child Mind Institute, which is a summer program. We are in the beginning of a new era in this nation, given the fact that we're in a changing environment of leadership in the United States. What's the best thing that you would suggest to be done for kids with special needs?
So I think that that's a great question. I think that we here at the Child Mind Institute are focused on providing evidence-based care to children with mental health difficulties, and with the starting of our summer program here, that keeps us on track with that. What we aim to do with the program is really help children maintain the gains that they've been achieving over the course of the school year. And so when school ends in June, we have them with us in July. We provide any boosters or additional support in August, so that they're ready to then begin the year again in September. So we really want to make sure that children are getting as much support as they need for their behavioral learning and social difficulties.
Sure. I think a big part of any work we do with children is parent support as well. And so our summer program also is going to offer a weekly parent training, where for 90 minutes a week, we're actually going to be going over the skills that we're teaching these kids every day so that they can reinforce the behaviors at home. We actually invite all caregivers to participate in those trainings. So grandparents, nannies, aunts, uncles, because we know that the more caregivers involved in a child's treatment, aware of how to best support them, the better the outcomes. And so that's a really important piece of the training. And we actually are going to offer ongoing parent training and school consultation to even involve teachers after the program's over.
I understand that this is a relatively new program for you here at Child Mind. So, and one of the unique things about it is the small ratio of teachers to students. So can you talk about that a little bit and the importance of that ratio?
So yes, it is our inaugural year. We hope that this is one of many years to come in our program. We hope that the program grows over time and we can have children of a variety of ages. Right now we're starting with children between the ages of 5 to 9, or really kindergarten through 4th grade. But yes, so the child-adult ratio, it's 3 children to 1 adult every single moment of the program. And the reason why we like that is because it really gives a high level of clinical support and intervention, so that the children throughout the course of the day, as they're engaging in structured activities, less structured activities like lunch and recess-like activities, they're really getting the support they need for their specific goals throughout the day. We're never really going to stop reminding them or reinforcing their progress.
One thing to that as far as kind of who our staff are. So we're the program directors. We also have other clinicians, psychologists that will be kind of head teachers in the classroom. We're bringing on a special education teacher as well that's going to be providing ongoing learning support in the morning, so that kids that may be struggling with reading, writing, or math throughout the year get that extra booster, and we can prevent some of the lag that happens over the summer. And then the counselors are all going to be either psychology undergrad students or graduate students that are looking to kind of get more experience in this field, and we're going to provide a lot of intensive training and coaching to help them work one-to-one with the kids.
This is Assistant Editor Lydia Liebman of Education Update. Could you maybe tell us a little bit about what differentiates your program from some of the other programs that may be out there for children in this age bracket?
Thanks, Lydia. That's a great question. So one thing that differentiates us from other programs is that, similar to other programs here at the Child Mind Institute, we're an evidence-based practice institution. So that means that what we're doing in this program is we're following a manual that's been supported by a ton of research that says not only is this effective, it could be done summer after summer. It's helpful for children and families at school, at home. So we're really staying in line with what the literature is telling us is helpful and effective. The other thing is that we're going to be located on the Upper East Side, which it'll be the only program of its kind in that location. It's being held only for the month of July so that families can then enjoy August, the rest of their summer, to go on the vacations that they already have planned. They can visit with family. Children can go to other camps that they may like specific camps like sports camps or horseback riding camps. So we really like that the time is significant enough to be effective, but also short enough that families and children can have their summers. So we hope to have anywhere between 24 and 36 children. In the groups of children, it would be up to 12 children per group. They would be age matched. So it's not like we would have a 5-year-old with a 9-year-old. We'd want to make sure that the younger children, 5s and 6s, are together, and 7 to 9, those children would be together.
And I'll just add that a big piece of our program is helping kids to develop social skills, actually develop those peer relationships. A lot of kids that are going to be coming to us may have struggled in camps before or schools before with making friends. And a big part of our program is trying to build up their self-esteem so they start to feel really good about being in a program, good about making friends. These are kids that may have been kicked out of camps in the past, have really struggled with after-school activities. We want them to come away from this program feeling really good about themselves, really having kind of a renewed self-esteem about being successful in a group, in a team. So we're going to be thinking a lot about which kids might be good kind of friendship pairs so that we can really help them practice their social skills every day. So rather than kind of teach a kid a social skill and say, okay, go and practice on your play date tomorrow, the benefit is also that we can teach them that skill and then immediately help them practice during recess, during gym, during art activities too.
Bullying is a major problem in many different sectors of, psychology and children. And is there anything special that you recommend when kids are being bullied or bullying others?
So I think that what we're always wanting to teach our children is how to be a positive force when they're around other people, whether it's their own parents, whether it's their siblings, doctors, teachers, peers, people in the neighborhood. And so that's something that we're always emphasizing. Kind of like the saying goes, do unto others as you would like to be done to you, or however it goes. And that will be coming into play in our summer program, right? Practicing pro-social skills, how to start a conversation, how to maintain a conversation, how to say something to somebody that helps them feel good so that they want to keep talking to you. And then and then the children will feel that same energy from the other children that they're around. So it's just a lot of practice of back and forth of pro-social positive behavior skills.
I think, in addition to catching really kids when they're being good, right, we want to be catching every good behavior that we see by giving them lots of positive attention, by even giving them points to work towards rewards and privileges and opportunities to be a leader and go on field trips. There's also certainly going to be behaviors that aren't so good. Kids tease each other, right, they might leave each other out, and so there will be opportunities to kind of coach kids live in actually how to respond to bullies, right, how to respond if they are feeling left out, how to advocate for themselves in a way that is productive, right, that doesn't get themselves in trouble. And so teaching them, right, is this a moment where you can walk away, or is this a moment where you might need to get a counselor and how you do that in an appropriate way?
I am particularly interested in teaching compassion to young people, both children and teenagers, and I have seen the lack of compassion, and the end results are really probably very horrific. Can we teach compassion, first of all, and do you do that in your program?
So I think teaching compassion, that's part of thinking about that it takes a village to raise a child. So, we will be working on that in our program with the children there. All the counselors will be aware of that as kind of part of the backdrop. Because something that we're thinking about is children that are in the program that have social difficulties, they may be facing a lack of compassion from other folks. So that's certainly a focus of ours. In addition, if we think back to the village, during the week as we're providing parent training and updates and coaching, we will be encouraging that all of this stuff also starts at home and is maintained at home, so that the children in our program are really being encouraged and modeled and taught how to be a compassionate person, how to respond when someone's being compassionate to them, and how to look for that in their interactions moving forward.
Yeah, and it's certainly built into the program, right? So, just like we're thinking about catching every good behavior, we're also modeling really good behavior, right? So kids aren't going to kind of start to learn a lot of these skills on their own, right? Sometimes kids with behavioral learning or social needs or ADHD need extra practice to actually develop some of these social skills that come naturally to other kids. So our goal is to every day kind of introduce a new skill really around compassion, right? Around forming positive connections, modeling it for them, and then catching it, right? As soon as they're doing it every time, right? So we're letting them know what did they do that was good in their body language, in their tone of voice, how they were looking at somebody else, and how can we help them tune into how another child might be responding to them, right? So if they're sharing a toy, right, letting them know, I see you just shared that toy, and look, that other child is smiling back at you. So letting them kind of really see, right, the connection that another child might be getting from something that they did or didn't do.
How do you track the progress that a child has made in your program? From the beginning, when you first see that child, to the end of 3 weeks, which is a relatively short period of time, do you have a particular standard or test or evaluation?
We love data here at the Child Mind Institute. We track everything. So we are going to be getting measures from parents and from teachers as far as how are kids doing compared to other kids in their class pre-program, and how are they doing after the program. So that's definitely going to be built in. Daily, actually, we're also going to be tracking progress. We're going to be having all kids working towards different behavioral goals. They're going to be getting points literally every time they're doing something, kind of like a live video game, right? So if they're following a direction, 1 point. If they're practicing a social skill, 2 points. Those points are going to be added up over the course of the day to be able to cash in for extra recess time, being a special helper, getting a reward. And we're actually going to track that data so we can show parents, right, how points are increasing or decreasing depending on what we're doing in the program.
How do you train parents to do the right, in quotation marks, the right thing, to help their children who are having all of these difficulties? After all, the reason that they're here at Child Mind is because they had so many difficulties. What's the solution for the parents, and what guide do you provide for them?
So I think that that's a great question, and there are a lot of parts of the answer to it. The first thing is we really try to meet parents where they are, what their specific struggles are, how it affects them as a family, because that's different in every family. We teach them what the actual skills are from an intellectual standpoint, right? That's the first step, just understanding what to do when and why. Giving them the space to ask questions, especially if they don't necessarily like the skill or think that they would be good with following through on it. And then as they start to slowly and gradually implement skills one at a time, right, they have to get good at one skill before they can learn and start using another skill. We then, make sure that they're asking questions and we're able to practically help them apply the skills and manage their own stress in doing so, because when parents are intervening with behavior, there's a very disruptive component to it, which then of course is very stressful and emotional and hard on families and couples and individuals. So again, it's really teaching them the skills, helping them implement, and then coaching them and helping them manage the thoughts and feelings that come with it.
Yeah, and I think, we really emphasize that behavior change takes time, right? If you're implementing a behavioral program, we're not going to see change overnight, right? A lot of kids have patterns of behavior with their families that have been there for many years. And so the first part is to provide education to parents that might be true, and then to know that we don't always have the same level of kind of patience that we do for these types of behaviors, for oppositional behaviors, for hyperactive behaviors or impulsive behaviors, as we do for a child that might be anxious or feeling really sad or depressed, right? If we see a kid that's crying or kind of frozen, everything in our body wants to go help them right away. When we see kids that are, throwing chairs or spitting or screaming, even though those kids need that same level of support from their teachers and their counselors, they're not always getting it. And I think it's important for parents to know that they still require that same level of support and structure. And a lot of these kids feel really out of control. And so I think that's a big piece of our program too, is helping families and whoever is working with the kids to know that, and to help kind of build that level of patience that doesn't come so easily to all of us when we see these different types of behaviors.
I was particularly impressed when you said positive reinforcement, because that's my mantra. So the other day I was with a parent and she said, if you do that again, you'll have time out. What would you advise that parent? Because I know you're using a lot of positive reinforcement here, and you've mentioned something about gathering points, and then you can cash in your points and you go right to Citibank now. And then you can there's a field trip every Friday. And is that for only certain students? So what do you tell the parent that is using a reinforcement that's negative, really? You're going to have time out if you do that again.
So, what you're talking about, timeouts or punishment techniques, they are certainly part of the intervention strategy, but we like to think about intervention for behavior as kind of a pyramid. And at the bottom, or the bigger part, the foundation, is the positive behavior support skills. And at the top is really consequences or removal of privileges, which is timeout or, losing access to field trips. So it's definitely part of the picture, but we often encourage families to think of it as like the salt on the meal. Use it sparingly. It's definitely a part of it, but it's not the main course, right? So with positive behavior support, we want to be talking to that parent, coaching that parent, and thinking about how to catch the child being good when they're doing what we call the positive opposite of the behavior. So she's really changing her focus or using her, what we say, her behavior binoculars on the positive behaviors and the good behaviors rather than necessarily on the negative ones, because what we focus on is what is actually the behaviors that happen more. So we want to kind of shift the focus as really the first step.
Yeah, and I think, every family comes to us asking questions about kind of what to do in those worst case scenarios, right? When things are feeling really out of control and overwhelming and stressful. And we really emphasize prevention, right? What can we do with positive reinforcement to prevent it from even kind of getting to that place of feeling unsafe or feeling like the only thing that's going to work is a threat or a timeout. So there are, certain situations if behaviors are unsafe where we will use strategies like removal of privileges or timeout, but like Dr. Silverman said, sparingly, and that we really want to focus on prevention.
Is there a particular individual in the history of this field, and you've been in this field for quite some time? Mm-hmm. I know that, Michelle, you studied at the university, you studied at Albert Einstein. Part of your education was at Albert Einstein. And part of your education, Dr. Mandi, was at University of Pennsylvania. What bits and pieces of vital stuff did you pick up there? And did you ever meet anybody that stands out as a compelling figure in this field that you admire?
So I think the things that stood out from my clinical training was really thoroughly assessing the situation or what the needs were, right? What are children, families, parents, adults, teenagers, whomever, what are they coming to us with? How do we put it together in a way where we can then take next steps to treat and make things better? And I think that's the focus for us here in general at the Child Mind Institute, is really focusing on what's happening where we can make really positive change and people can feel better. I think the most influential person in my clinical training was probably at the Center for Cognitive Therapy at the University of Pennsylvania, which the folks there trained with the Aaron Beck, who is the creator of cognitive behavioral therapy. And while I didn't have direct interaction with him, I saw him in the hallways a lot because he was a pretty busy man and I was a trainee. Mm-hmm. But I think the head of the program there, Dr. Corey Newman, was really a big proponent of thorough assessment to really understand what the treatment strategies would be to make meaningful, impactful, and quick behavior change.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I think, first of all, all of my supervisors over the course of my training have been, very influential for me, especially in kind of learning how to coach parents live and kind of learning a lot of these skills. And I think, we have to give credit to Bill Pelham, who has actually developed this research manual, and we're certainly inspired by his work. He does an incredible job thinking about how to use evidence-based work to help kids with behavioral learning and social needs in a way that's really flexible and allows us to tailor the program to the individual needs. So we've actually been able to speak with him about how do we take this program that we know works so well and adapt it for the needs of kids at the Child Mind Institute and what's going to work for us. So we certainly are using a lot of kind of his work to inspire kind of what we do now here.
One of my last questions that I have is just regarding the future of the summer program. What are your hopes for it? Do you hope to do this more frequently next summer? What is your plan for the future of the program that you're doing this summer?
That's a great question. So we're really excited about this being our first program. So I think we're going to be learning a lot about what works best. How do we tailor it to fit the needs of the kids coming in the door? Our hope is that we're able to expand age ranges over time. So right now we're targeting kids ages 5 to 9. Our hope is to expand to go a little bit younger and also go older to be able to meet the needs of even more kids. And then we're thinking about the option of potentially expanding it. Right now it's 3 weeks. We really like that because it gives families the opportunity to get intensive treatment, 90 hours of treatment actually in 3 weeks, and also be able to, do other things that they want to do as a family over the summer. We also recognize that many families actually want, a more long-term support. And so we're thinking about potentially expanding how long the program will be too.
My last question. What do you suggest to parents to prepare best for handling some of the intricacies and difficulties of their own children?
It's a great question. I think, number one, what we say is carve out time to spend with kids where there are no demands or pressure to get anything done. We are so rushed all of the time with our schedules and what we need to do that we don't always have time to just kind of sit down and play and kind of let kids lead the play, or lead and show kind of an activity that they're really interested in. So what we say is 5 minutes a day, right? Can you let your kid kind of lead the interaction, right? Let them show you that YouTube video that they're so excited about, or the new Lego structure that they built, or share something about what happened at school that day. And the goal for those 5 minutes, right, is to put your cell phones away, right? Turn off the TV and really tune into your kids. And that's easier said than done with all the technology and distractions in our life, but that's always where we kind of start. And 5 minutes a day, even though it sounds like nothing, and many families will say, oh, well, we do that, it can be really effective if we can just increase the quality time that we really spend kind of tuning into what kids are doing and saying.
And I think with that, something to remember, really two things is number one, not sweating the small stuff. A lot of times our days are filled with what we kind of call the paper cuts of behavior, little snafus here and there, some arguing, some whining, those kinds of things. And they can really accumulate and change the course of the day. And what we want parents to think about along the lines of the prevention strategy is celebrating the wins, looking at the successes, even if they're small or short, or maybe if there aren't as many as the other harder things. But the more we can focus on those strengths, those wins, the smiles, the more that they'll happen, and the better that parents can manage the tough parts of the day if they can use those other moments as their fuel, as their motivation, as part of their outlook.
Yeah. And I think, to be forgiving that, we have all of these strategies that we know work well. It's really hard to use them 100% of the time, and that's okay. We teach a lot of parents and teachers skills that we know are going to work really well to manage behavior. And I think, being okay with not being at 100% all the time. We make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. And so being able to kind of reset yourself and know that we're all trying the best that we can.
I want to thank you for the time that you spent with us at Education Update. We applaud the work that you're doing. And of course, Dr. Koplowitz, who heads the entire organization, handling our children and creating the environment to produce the best next generation that we can is something to be applauded always. So we applaud you and thank you